in a different place, and you do have something to investigate.
But you've already
Go ahead
answered.
Go ahead and tell us how you're going to go about doing it.
You've already given us the cause to this effect.
Can I ask you a question?
You've already given us the cause to this effect.
No, I haven't. There is no effect. There's no effect. It's just objects being where objects are. That's not an effect.
Yeah, based on your hypothesis.
No, not based on any hypothesis.
Observed phenomena. We built a model as you posted it. You're in the meantime, your flat Earth model, the mountain would be significantly higher, and it's not. Your model is wrong.
So suddenly objects are just where they are, huh?
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about any of those refractive effects that you guys use to explain away any observation.
Great, Brandon. I was talking.
Your model, right?
So
actually, I started talking before,
great,
but
Brandon.
that's cool.
Yeah, great, Brandon. Keep hand waving.
We'll come back to you, Brandon. Just let Queen get hers in. We'll come back to that.
Chemo, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing because I've watched Everyone Knows in the server that Bridgerton's one of my favourite shows, and I have been practicing my accent. So I'm going to ask you a question in your native language. Are you ready?
Yeah.
How far is Blackpool from you, Your Honour?
That's very good. Yeah.
Is that good? Was that too Cockney?
It was a little bit My Fair Lady, but you know, you
Victorian.
A little bit Victorian. Okay, I'm going to have to continue to work on that.
Okay.
What do you think, Chemo? I think it's quite good.
That was pretty
Considering
good.
where I started.
That was pretty good.
I sounded like Mrs. Bouquet.
Sounded like Mary Poppins.
You'd have fooled me, but I'm an American, so.
Mary Poppins meets My Fair Lady, I think.
Anyway, it seems like Brandon's another one who's telling us that the flat Earth no longer looks flat, but that's...
Oh, well, you know, Brandon is known to be mental and wrong a lot.
Go ahead,
no, I was actually trying to understand your position because you said there's no, we don't have to worry about refractive effects. It just is where it is.
Right.
That's not what he said. God, I love the way you guys
paraphrase. I'm sorry. He can correct me.
It is where it is, taking account of standard refraction. That's what they did in the observation. What are you guys going to take account of to get your mountains where you need them to be?
Well, personally, I'm not looking to try to explain why those mountains are where they are, but I just find it interesting that all of a sudden things are where they are.
Why not, Brandon? No, why are you not looking to do that?
Because your whole thing is predicated on curvature, but you need to prove that there's curvature to the Earth.
Actually,
this will all come back to that. We can argue about optics until we all die.
All right. So, but any evidence, you would say that about any evidence we presented, wouldn't you?
I've been saying that a long time about optical evidence.
Here's another piece. I would say here's a piece of evidence that shows curvature, and you'd go, yes, but I can't consider that piece of evidence that shows curvature until you've proven curvature.
Exactly.
You're just creating a silly catch-22, and
No, I'm not, because you won't accept any observation that shows flat. So
here's a picture of curvature, Brandon. Taken.
Why do I have to accept anything that shows what you think is curvature?
Because that's not true.
What's not true?
That I won't accept any observation that shows flat. You don't have any observation.
So the many observations that we have over long distance, including the laser observations, mirror observations.
Right, well, they're both bogus, and the people doing them already know that they're bogus. And
so you're just...
Brandon, really? Have you gone
that sounds like a hand wave to me, Queen. You're going to call them out on that?
Brandon, the objections to these laser tests were raised when people first started doing them. They said...
Are you talking about the...
I'll tell you what I was about to tell you what I'm talking about. I was about to tell you what I'm talking about, okay?
Go ahead.
That is that the laser beam spreads over the distance, so you don't know which bit of it that you're seeing at the other end, and that laser beams are not immune to the effects of refraction. They refract just like everything else. So they're listen, nearly there. They're the two problems with laser tests. These were raised. And flat earthers, or actually, namely a flat earther, Jeranism, addressed them in his laser test. That's why he had those boards with the holes going through it. Now, okay, his test was unsuccessful. I'm not drawing any conclusions from that. Could be a million and one reasons why his test was unsuccessful. The point is, he recognized that just seeing a laser across a lake is insufficient. And it's interesting, I think, that although he recognized that, the rest of you regress and you keep producing these bogus laser tests that demonstrate nothing. Then the Lake Balaton one, we've never actually seen the results for, and there's all sorts of, anecdotal evidence about the nature of that thing, how everyone was drunk and it all happened at the last moment and no one was there to film it and all this sort of stuff. So that's
beautiful part of the Mediterranean, by the way.
So and it mirrors similarly. It's very difficult to determine anything with a mirror. So I'm unimpressed by these observations, and I think that the people who made them, particularly with the lasers, they should have made more effort to make them useful, given that other flat earthers had already attempted to do that.
So you are dismissing all of the different laser tests that have been done?
Well,
do they all fall into this basket? Because there's many of them.
Yes, absolutely every single one of them does. I'm afraid every one.
That's a hypothesis.
You found well, I bet it isn't a nutter, is it? I've given my reason.
It is.
No, it isn't. I gave you two very specific reasons. Do you remember what the reasons were?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll accept your objections because you have these objections, and that's fine. If you'll accept my objections to your evidence that you're putting forward now. And we can go back to all of us understanding that optical observations are not going to prove the shape of the Earth.
Oh, God, you're very desperate.
But if that's your objection,
this has been my position all along, Queen. I'm not desperate for anything.
What kind of
however, you've spent many hours. I've been in your hangout where you're looking at pictures that someone produced of boats on the horizon that are obstructed, and I can remember being astounded at you sitting there pitching this, which is a new thing apparently in flat Earth, that stuff being obstructed on the horizon is now proof of a flat Earth. You spend many hours looking at stuff on video and photos and
thousands of hours.
When it supports you, when it confirms your bias. You don't know
to try to understand the phenomena that takes place over long distance. That's what I'm interested in.
It. You just
but I've been saying for a long time, and that's why we've been trying to come up with a physical test for the shape of the Earth, that optical observations are not going to prove the shape of the Earth. I've been saying this for months and months.
Videos and thousands of photos from space, Brandon. Stop being retarded.
Yeah,
okay, you don't need to get a piece of string out.
Oh, now we're going to go to photos of space.
And ultimately, you are abandoning another flat Earth ideal, which is the idea that you can go on what you see. You're just saying anything we see, anything optical, none of that can be trusted. It's all just a mystery, and I think that's absurd. I don't think that's
a mystery.
I don't think that's a reasonable position that you could.
That's not my position.
Well, what you are, that is your.
You always have a way of taking the words I say and the positions I have and twisting them to the worst possible
exactly what
interpretation.
You just said, Brandon.
Well, you're saying that optical observations are not useful to us. Nothing optical is useful to us.
I didn't say they're not useful to us. I said they're not going to prove the shape of the Earth. That's what I said.
Well, when I say not useful to us, I don't mean in grating cheese. I mean in proving or establishing the shape of the Earth.
Right. Yes, they're not useful in that. That's true.
Well, I don't think that's
what
reasonable.
Is useful, Brandon? Please tell me what you would accept.
A physical measurement of the surface of the Earth that shows either curvature or lack of curvature. Same thing that we've been talking about forever.
Yeah, it's the standard flat Earth.
Essentially a big tape measure. Yeah.
I'm not even going to consider any evidence that that challenges me, and
There you go again.
until you've jumped through some absurd and impossible hoop that I've dreamed up.
If you're so convinced of your position, why is it you always have to twist the words that I say?
Well,
What's
because
really
I'm not
strange,
twisting the
though,
words
is
you
that
say.
you call yourself a
It's-
truther.
You are.
It's a tactic.
You're a perpetual fallacy machine.
It's a tactic that we hear in Flat Earth every single day.
It's not a tactic. It's what I think.
Well done, Glober. Well done. Nice try. However, I can't consider your evidence until you've jumped through these arbitrary, bizarre hoops that I've dreamed.
I didn't
dreamed
say
up for
that.
you.
I didn't get any hoops for you. I didn't say that I can't review your observations. I review all kinds of observations from both sides. I'm telling you that I have come to the conclusion that optical observations, are not going to lead us to proving the shape of the Earth one way or the other.
God, I give you, Brandon.
Well, how is that dishonest,
two other
Queen?
people.
Hold on, Queen. How is that dishonest? You're just chirping in from
You're
the
dishonest
sideline
with
your
yourself,
insults
Brandon, right?
as usual. You're boring.
You're
shit.
dishonest with yourself. It's blatantly obvious. You're just
really
dishonest.
Okay.
Yeah?
Well, I'm glad you think that way. So
Yeah.
why don't you just
Do you want
not
me to
engage
elaborate
me?
on it? Because I can, Brandon. How dishonest you are.
No, I'd like to do something
No?
more interesting if that's okay.
So you'll sit in your echo chamber and look at a photo and some video for hours, just like
Echo
Jim said.
chamber.
But the echo chamber.
Where's my
yes.
echo chamber, Queen?
100% an echo
Queen,
chamber.
what is
over in your
there?
server.
Where is this
what's
echo
Brandon
chamber,
done?
Queen?
Why
You've
why
just told us
What am I
about-
doing here? If I just sit in my
You-
echo chamber,
you-
how come I
you
let
just-
Jem come on and run the show practically?
Muted half the time,
Why
but
do you
all
attack
right.
Muted
No,
half
he
the
did.
time?
He did let me get away with quite a lot. That has to be said.
But Queen, why do you attack Brandon like this? What's the problem?
Well, because it's. I mean, he literally.
No, not
the
Because
you,
it's honest
Jem.
correct.
Hang on. The first thing he described to us was laser tests and mirror tests, none of which he's done himself, all of which he knows about through some sort of optical media. And here he is. Oh, no, you can't find out anything from optical media. I mean,
I'm
it's
not putting
just
those forward
it's
as proof.
blatant hypocrisy. And I'll
I'm
give you
not
two.
putting those forward.
I'll give you two examples of two people who used exactly the same tactic that you did, Brandon. Quantum Eraser suddenly decided that he needed observer angles from sextants and theodolites. Didn't need any of that for the Black Swan, of course, but now that's absolutely essential that he has that. None of that was ever available for any of the Isle of Man stuff. Nobody even mentioned it, but now there's nothing can be considered until you've got that. Just, okay, you've got some evidence, but I'm not even going to look at it until you've jumped through these other hoops for me.
I've already looked at all your
Jeremy
evidence.
did exactly the same thing. He said, we need measurements. Even though we know the height of these objects, it's known, apparently Jeremy somehow needs us to actually go and physically measure them. It's just making shit up so that you don't have to face the evidence that's staring you in the face.
Can you at least acknowledge that I've been saying for a very long time that we won't be able to prove the shape of the Earth with optics? Can you at least acknowledge that, Jem? Oh, I can't respond to Jem. He just talked for a minute, and you weren't even in this conversation. Can you at least acknowledge, Jem, that I have been saying for a long time that I don't think we can prove the shape of the Earth optically?
You set up an arbitrary hoop to do that, to jump through.
Brian, you're always
can you at least
complaining about
acknowledge
letting
that?
people finish,
But
and now
you
you're
needed a
talking
long
through...
distance
Brian.
light bending experiment because
Damn.
you would accept that light bends
Brian,
at a
you're
short.
the first one to complain about me talking through people. Now you're just doing it.
You ain't about to ask that question, so.
All right, Kosho.
I know,
it's
maybe
been handled.
Kosho can answer that question. Can you at least acknowledge that I've been saying for
No,
a
we
long
don't want the
time
Kosho show,
that we
Brandon. Do
can't-
that on your hour, all right?
that we can't optically prove the shape of the Earth?
Do that
Can you
on
at least
your
acknowledge that I've been saying that for a long time?
Yeah,
You know
invite
we've
him to
had
your
discussions
show.
about that.
Have a discussion with him over there.
Well, of
No,
course,
Brandon,
Brandon.
you and I have
Kosho,
had a,
can
you
you
and I have had a
can
discussion
someone
about that.
acknowledge that? I've talked about it many times in here. It's very obvious from the things.
What about the
I've said.
warehouse observation you brought here? What about your warehouse observation you brought
What
here?
do Jeremy and I always talk about when we're
Brandon, I'm
We've been
trying
saying
to
the same
remind you of
thing for
something
a
that
very
you
long
said
time.
about this whole thing. Will you stop talking through it? You've actually
No, because
you
no
have
one
brought
answered
this
my
up before.
question. You're accusing me of
Brian's trying
being
to.
dishonest, but no one can acknowledge this.
Brandon, you actually have come in here.
Dishonest.
You actually have come in here and put up arbitrary hoops
I'm
for
the
things,
dishonest one.
which is you would not accept, which is I won't accept any optical effect until you can do a long distance test showing me that light bends, because you would not accept the short term observations, the short distance observations. Do you not remember
I never
coming here
said
and doing that?
No.
Brian,
I
what you
usually
trying to
did,
touch?
Brandon.
You've
God,
just
he's
butchered
Right,
dishonest.
Kosho, let people
butchered it
talk.
completely.
We don't need you in the middle of
Have a
every
look at the video in the
conversation.
chat, Brandon. That was you with your warehouse observation, wasn't it? Have a look at that. That proves
Yes, that's an
something then, didn't
observation
it?
that shows that the atmosphere can actually block objects in the distance from the bottom up. That's all that
Right.
shows. That doesn't
Yeah.
prove the shape
And
of the Earth.
refraction's been taken care of in this image, hasn't it? In fact, refraction
Has
makes
it?
it worse for you flatties.
Refraction's been taken care of. That's interesting.
They assume a 7.6R
They
value
accounted
for
refraction,
standard
Brandon. Is this the
refraction,
first
but that
you've heard of
includes
that,
the
is it?
radius.
God, you're not very
Lemon,
up
did
to
you notice
date,
how
are
none
you?
of them could at least acknowledge that I have said that in the past? And then
You've
just
never,
hear what
no,
you said?
no,
Just a
because you've
common
always been the
Clover
observation
tactic.
guy, so stop
Will
talking
avoid the
shit.
logic at all
Unbelievable.
costs. That's why you just gish gallop and railroad all over them, because they will obfuscate and obstruct the topic as much as possible if it leads anywhere toward a flat Earth.
Acknowledged.
Thanks, Lemon. Your fans are out there. Hey.
Hey, how y'all doing? Good to see you.
Good
Thanks.
to see ya.
Thanks for listening. I'm nothing without the fans.
Kosho, I think you were going to answer my question.
No, it's not the Kosho show. Take him over to your show,
Wow.
Brandon.
Does Queen run you now, Kosho? What is going on with this?
Take him over to your show, Brandon.
What is
Over
your
to your
deal,
echo
Kosho? Why are you
chamber.
attacking your own?
You're cutting everybody off. That's the only reason I'm trying to get him some airtime, because he gets asked questions, he doesn't get to answer, and then he asks questions that nobody answers. We're just trying to make sure he's going to get a fair turn.
Get Kosho's phone number, Brandon. Give him a private conversation. This is a public server, right? We've got 50-odd people wanting to chat. It's not a conversation between
It'd be
you
a
and
lot better
Kosho.
if you
Move
would be
down to
quiet.
another room. Thank you.
Yeah,
The
still
thing
no
is,
one can acknowledge it.
we gotta have a straight standard to measure the curvature of the Earth against. And sure, light may bend, but it has to be straight enough for us to see the light bending. So for all intents and purposes, light is straight. If it's hitting the target, hitting the eye, it's probably hitting the eye straight and not bending 8 inches per mile squared around the Earth. That's absurd. So these lasers appear to be pointing toward a flattish Earth based off of that, standard.
So in Lemon's world, light can't bend a half a degree. That's a weird statement.
Yeah, but
You
I
want a
mentioned this
straight
before.
standard? Go with the corkscrew. That's straight compared to you, Lemon.
Well, half a degree at the eye or half a degree at the origin, because you're going to get, potentially hundreds of thousands of miles if it's at the origin as opposed to the eye. So where's the bending happening?
Well, it's a camera,
You
as
don't
we
even
said
know what
earlier.
you're babbling.
Why are you talking about the eye again?
Because
It's
it's
a
going to add a lot
freaking
of
camera
distance if
that's
it's at the
taking
origin.
it. You can't compare the eye's optics to the camera's ability.
Actually, I can't.
Keep doing that over and over again, even though it's a fallacious statement.
You reset and came back a few hours later after we went through this. You tried to compare the processing, and I told you the eye decodes light, and the brain creates the image of what the eye sees. But you're trying to explain away diffraction limit when the camera doesn't suffer from that diffraction limit.
Suffers
The
from that
human
too.
eye can't see those 80 kilometers, but the lensing that we don't have in our eyes does. So you've got to attack the argument, and the image is not from an eye.
Don't
So
do
stop
the
using the
diffraction
eye to
eye
make any claim.
It still has
The
a
eye has been
diffraction limit where a horizon will
superseded
form.
by the camera's technology.
It still has a diffraction limit where a horizon will form.
It doesn't
Yeah, but it would
matter.
it would be different than what the eye sees.
It would just be
Exactly.
further out, but there would still be a horizon line that forms. Objects would jump out of this horizon line instead of being a compressed, smushed horizon line. You get to see some of the objects jump out of there with the zoom.
Yeah, but we don't
there would
see
still be a
that
horizon.
in this image. We see detail like the cross on top of the church 19 plus kilometers away.
So the thing to keep in mind, Lemon, is that the image that this Kevin image that was supplied first, and then the Bev's Sun image that was provided later, were with two completely different cameras with completely different apertures. They saw the same amount of mountain hidden.
So
Let Lemon respond.
what was that? Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say.
You can respond, Lemon. Go.
Thank you. I was going to say a horizon is going to form around 3,000 times the height of the observer, and you're going to get the ceiling ramp down and the floor ramp up, smush, converge, and make a horizon line.
Where did
But
you
the
get the
aperture was totally
3,000
different. The
times
same amount
number?
of mountain was hidden.
Okay, well then it'll just be more pieces. We have 3,000 pieces for the human eye. It'll be more pieces for the camera.
It's just more smushing, guys. Come on. It's just more smushing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Smoosh
You take
smoosh?
You take the view of the human eye, 60 degrees, divided by 0.02 degrees of angular resolution, you get 3,000 pieces.
700mm lens.
I think the camera has what, 30,000 pieces. We need to do the math on that. 60 divided by whatever the angular resolution of the camera is, I guess, or whatever.
You're forgetting the zoom and the field of view.
Yeah, so we just need to remath it a little bit, but it's the same principle. It just is a bit more pieces, is all.
Talking about
you
at
do
least
realize
12
we have
megapixels.
optics that exceed the capability of an eye by like thousands of percent.
We're talking about one camera that has at least 12 megapixels. The other one, if I remember correctly, is a 20 megapixel camera.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going to exceed.
I was thinking of going up to professional grade shit.
And what was the field of view?
6 billion plus.
Y'all got the best equipment, but you need the philosophy, the flat philosophy. That's where normies like me and Brandon and others just come in without all the money, the prestige, or the education or whatever, and just come with some common sense.
Yeah, the last one being the operative. The last one being the operative. The education. Right? That's the problem.
It's like saying I want to be an author, but I don't know how to write.
It's like saying...
here's Druss with one of his irrelevant analogies. Hi, Druss. How are you?
Oh,
awesome.
Absolutely satisfied about the level of gatekeeping to any conversation I can hold on the fucking internet over the last few days. So I'm really not sensitive at all. How are you?
Good, Druss. Welcome to the conversation.
But I tell you this. Camera manufacturers haven't understood refraction at all, right, Lemon? They have no idea about refraction and how to, account for it and negate it and minimize it. I mean, that stuff has gone completely over these people that charge thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for their equipment.
Yes, because they forgot about the diffraction limit. These objects will approach the diffraction limit where they will converge, merge, and disappear right around the level of the eyes.
Right, so converge, merge, disappear for the level of the eye, completely irrelevant because this is a camera. That camera would take that photo if the person was facing the way of the photo or not. Yes or no?
Yeah, but it still has a diffraction.
So it didn't take the human eye. It didn't even matter. A blind man could have taken that photo if it was shown which it was, guided to which button he needs to push.
And it will still present a picture that is diffraction limited. A horizon will form in the foreground at the diffraction limit based off of your height, and that horizon, like a coin, will V out, spread, and block a whole big visual zone beyond, cutting off mountains, buildings, and other higher structures. So we have
show us use any level of refraction and show us how much you've taken that into account. And show us where the smushing is in that photo, because Blackpool is clearly visible down to small details like Ferris wheel seats and crosses on the church. So please stop acting like there's a smushing happening where the mountains are disappearing unless you can definitively with specificity explain where.
Well, we already have the information that it's 250 meters above sea level with at least the turbine or whatever. The tower is probably at a similar elevation, so really we need to count, 250 plus the elevation of the freaking clock tower too. So that's going to raise it up a little bit as well. But basically, you're going to have a horizon form in the foreground, and like a coin, it will obstruct the stuff in the background.
Okay. But if it's smushing, why isn't the mountaintop distorted?
You make the angle up and down from the level of the eyes. The horizon forms in the foreground for your 15-meter observer, whatever height he's at. And then that horizon is a coin, an object, that will block stuff beyond if it's at the right ratio. That's why I go with the equation that I was trying to finagle together. The log of height 2 divided by height 1, where height 2 is bigger than height 1, and height 1 is your elevation above the surface. It's based off of powers of 2. You take that and divide it by the log of 2. That's going to give you a number. You multiply that number from the first part times the second part, the vanishing point of the observer based off of h1, their height. If you're 15 meters above the surface, roughly, it'll be 15 times 3,000. You multiply those numbers together from part 1 and 2, and that will effectively give you the distance at which that bigger object is totally cut off by the horizon and obstructed.
Now do that with a camera that has a 1 degree field of view and 12 million pixels per image.
I need to know the diffraction limit of the freaking lens, and I can divide it into that 60 formula and try it out and try to pad mine with refraction.
I posted the lens specs just before.
The obvious
Sheeple, though, wouldn't you say that rather than the mountains being on the horizon, aren't they above the horizon? So all of Lemon's Woo doesn't really apply to it because it's above the smushy area.
Exactly. Now, it just so happens that with known radius of the Earth, that mountain is exactly where it should be. Yeah, and following on, you know, I don't know if you've ever held a ball or seen a ball thrown while the sun's out, and the shadow that creates is spherical, like a circle, 2D circle, the same shape that we see when the Earth is between the sun and the moon during a lunar eclipse. So those two things work, which is weird because there's no discrepancy there. Also, the moon flipped upside down works when I just stand on my head or, you know, flip a picture of a moon taken in the northern hemisphere. So that's weird. You know, the angle switches slightly at the degrees that Australia exists, so it begins to rotate around because of their orientations all kind of sideways. So that's weird. So all of these things work cohesively, and that's just 3. You know,
well, you explained with Cortelluzzi.
And you want to make up new science and say, well, this is my placeholder.
Well, before those scientists became scientists, they were people like you and me before they got deified, hero worshipped, and you said, oh, you can't think past these forefathers, otherwise you're committing blasphemy because of science.
On the contrary.
Very quickly, Lemon, I think you're confusing scientists with the Beatles in the 1960s.
Well, they've become the new priests. We threw out God and we threw out the priest, and now we have scientism priests. So we need to make sure that they're not giving us, you know, Far East mystical heliocentrism bull BS and test their claim for validity.
Steve Jobs than worship any scientist.
Well, Steve Jobs is one of our forefathers of the iPhone and stuff like that.
He's an engineer, isn't he? He's not a scientist.
But the thing is, we still need to get the What was that?
He never claimed to be a scientist. He was an engineer at best, and really, he was just a damn good business leader.
So if we don't have a straight standard to measure the curvature of the Earth against, you have no claim. You have a bunch of pictures poorly understood because they don't include the diffraction limit as part of the analysis.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Lemon. You're saying, you know, indoctrination and all the rest of it, can't think for yourself. On the contrary, I'm asking you to replace plausible, testable, known theories of things, and so far what you've provided does not, you know, as using the words of Pure, is not indicative of a flat Earth. It's easily explainable, and then when we get to the point where it matches explanation, if not better, we then apply more logic to why our backup reasons for that shape exist. Where you have, well, we don't know how the sky works bullshit.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You have a flat
At this
horizon.
point, if I was to choose which I would bet on, it would not be a flat Earth with the, well, I don't know, we'll work it out.
Well, we have a flat horizon without any curvature. We're just assuming that what's blocked beyond is blocked by a hump of Earth curvature. That is unjustified if perspective is cutting and crushing the object, and the horizon is like a coin, blocking huge amounts of the object beyond.
And when the moon passes in front of the sun's light, when it's 180 degrees type thing to the side, that's just happens to be when we get a lunar eclipse, and it just happens to create a spherical shadow. Those things don't require any science. Those things don't require anything but simply observing it and then looking to where the sun was setting.
You can get that with a disk. And that's what's happening up there. Right down here on the land, we need a straight standard, and we need more than untrustworthy NASA's fake CGI pictures.
I'm sorry, but this is not fake CGI anything. This is looking at the time when the eclipse is meant to occur. You don't need any equipment because the light of the moon literally is shadowed by a spherical or circular shape So what
But
you're trying to
that's
say,
what
that's when the flat Earth is meant to be coming in the way, or some other mystical reason why there's a shadow appearing on the moon. I'm
So you
sorry.
have to invoke a cosmological philosophical statement that globe gravity pulls everything into a perfect spherical shape. That is a philosophical declaration that has no substance. We look up there
Proven in the
assume what's
ISS
happening, but
when they did water experiments
most
and it
of the
went into a
time,
perfect sphere of water.
sphericity vanishes when the object gets big enough and it lies out flat like the water. So we don't even have evidence of this, and we say we're not going to get evidence of it because the Earth is so dang big, which is begging the question.
No, you're stuck on the horizon when I added the fact that orientation of the moon, lunar eclipses, not to mention the stars, constellations are different. The rotation spacing south and north are,
Perception of the
opposite to
equinox.
each other. Sorry, Jess?
Precession of the equinox, that's another one that really does not work on the disc.
That can't explain equinox.
Explained with the sun rotating out of sync with the clock of the stars. The stars are a bit behind the sun, so the sun is out of whack with them, and you have a precession that can be explained as they orbit over the flat plane.
Don't talk to me about explaining the sun when you can't even take the sun data for one day and map it on a model. Because once you do that, you realize it's impossible. Because
It's
you can't
just
have
orbiting over a
complete
fucking-
darkness in the northern hemisphere at the North Pole and a 24-hour sun explained. You can't explain that because when in your model, when the moon and the sun orbit or circle above, light shines across half of the planet and lights up areas that are meant to be dark. Only explainable on the size of the planet at the distance to the sun that we know, at the radiance and the heat that it gives off. All of these things known, all by you ignored. And I'm
That
getting
is a
real tired of it.
simplification. That is a simplification. A much more realistic model would be a spotlight with a circular coverage. What is named Mr. Thrive and Survive gets the locations of sunrise in different cities in the U.S. and he gets a bit of a curve based off of what he implies in his videos. So it appears that the sun's coverage is more like a spotlight. It is not a hemispheric half or whatever. That is a simplification for model purposes that does not match what we see in reality. At best, you'd have a spotlight with maybe a third of the or a fourth of the surface being covered, if that. The rest of it is just models and simplification, but it is circling over a flat plane.
Yeah, and you can't model that.
You just have it circling over the flat plane.
You can't model that, and you certainly can't explain the 17 hours of daylight on a circular path, rotating racetrack model. Okay.
It just circles closer to the north, the southern 24-hour
Okay, well,
sun.
model it then. You've got the time. You've got the time right now to go online and get at least 20 people or 20
sheeples. I don't think we're going to convert Lemon today.
No.
The point is, I don't care about Lemon directly, Queen. Okay, anybody listening to this crap and placeholder logic
Nobody's listening.
Infuriating.
But the thing is, I'm better than most, Globers in that I crossed over. I was open-minded.
No, you're babbling nonsense.
Open-minded, whereas the Globers were not.
Utter, incomprehensible nonsense. Incoherent garble.
Well, I'm just saying, you Globers look down on flat earthers, but they're very open-minded, superior people.
No. Unminded is not open-minded.
The boot.
You're out of your fucking minds. That's the problem.
You need to kiss the boot, Curved. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to kiss the boot, dude. I'm sorry.
You guys are so good at what you do. It's amazing. How much money do you make doing this, Lemon?
I'm here every Thursday.
And you make how much?
Excellent, Lemon. Your fans will mark it in their calendar.
Oh, thank you. I do.
Okay. Do you deny that you've got the sunrise and sunset data for at least 20 different places across known locations right now?
Yeah, but notice how the time and date data is missing below McMurdo Station. Very suspicious for a conspiratard flatty like myself.
How many people live there?
That's not true. What are you talking about?
New Zealand? New Zealand has a lot of people living in it, and they get lots and lots of light when the sun should be fucking far, far away.
But no 24-hour sun down in Antarctica. At best, you have refracted light while the sun is far, far, far away.
There is 24-hour sun in Antarctica, though, I think.
Below the Arctic Circle,
I think
though.
this is worse than Brandon denying that he's even going to look into the observation that Ranty
This is my
presented.
point. This is my point.
This is
Even using
weird.
3/4 of the globe locations, or locations with names, you could put together a model that would at least give us something to look at. But you won't do that, and it goes so bad on 24/7 that it's an instant ban for asking for a model.
Don't have
Well,
a model,
the thing
that's
is,
why.
we have models, but we have a bunch of complexity. Most of the models are old world and or religious, and most people are, religion-hating atheists nowadays. They're not comfortable with that stuff. Number one. Number two, we would like to make some more observations in objective reality, whatever the heck that is, to try to get a better model. Ideally, number two. Number three.
No, Lemon. Brandon said
so much,
observations
with
aren't
all
going to prove that we're on a globe.
Hey, Queen,
You guys can't get your arguments together.
Queen, did I
But
just,
we
did I
have,
just
something that looks
hear
like-
that nobody's actually looking at the evidence that I put forth, or they have to be cajoled into doing that? I mean,
No, they've admitted, Ranty. Jeremy admitted the other day. Chemo's admitted. They've all admitted they haven't even watched your presentation with Katz or Ruhif. This is the level of mentality we're dealing
that's
with.
an absolute insult to everything that I put into this community. And
It's
that's
also a load of horse shit.
But it's an
You
absolute.
guys can jerk each other off about it if you want.
No. It's an absolute insult. If I've spent 2 months after giving 5 years to Flat Earth and put some information
Yeah,
out
it's not
that
true.
really
man.
needs to
Save
be
your breath.
that needs to be
Let
addressed
Ranty
and looked
talk,
at,
you fucking mental
Oh,
monk.
shut
Right.
the fuck up, you lying bitch.
then
Oh,
ultimately
me lying? You
it should be down to the community to at least look at it and objectively before making the decision. Don't take your pre-assumed ideas of where we live into that presentation. Just listen to the information, digest it, and then go away and do some research on it. But
Who
if you
the
just
fuck are you talking about?
to everybody that hasn't actually watched the presentation.
Okay.
Why is it that the likes of QE and such are not
Hold
actually
on,
showing
hold on.
Ranty's
Let Brandon
presentation?
respond to Ranty, please.
No, it's not me.
Thanks for that, Chemo, while I was talking.
Oh.
But why
Yeah,
is
but-
it the likes of QE and such are not showing Ranty's presentation in full?
Because they are avoiding it, obviously. Because
we
they
know the
know what it
argument.
shows.
We know the argument already. The argument is it's lower.
Kimo, why are you butting in over Ranty like that?
He
The
asked,
people have questions. They ask them. Ranty's giving answers. You overtalk them.
why would
Sit
Ranty
down,
know why
Kimo.
they're not showing it on QE?
Sit down, Kimo.
Why would Ranty know
Get your
why
toys
not
and get
showing
back
it
on the
on
carpet
QE?
now.
He
Get
wouldn't
back
know,
to
would
the
he?
carpet.
How would Ranty know that, Curved?
Shut up. You're distracting. Go ahead,
You
Ranty.
don't know.
No, the simple thing is, it's just, at least let people see both sides of the argument to make a decision. So if you are willfully distracting people by giving them, information that's irrelevant and also ambiguous, which also can be debunked, bearing in mind, which I've put out tonight, but avoiding at all costs discussing what's actually been presented, then that is just it is dishonest.
The interpretation of what's presented, Ranty, is not
No, because no, there's no interpretation.
Ratios would be preserved.
Let me finish.
That's not justified.
Just let me finish. So the presentation is out there. Let people see it. Let people discuss it, and then if you want to debunk it, go ahead and debunk it on the merits of the presentation, not on something else.
Great point,
We've
Ranty.
already been down this road for the past 4 years. Life is Short went over how objects would approach the eye level of the observer based off of the height above the flat surface, be it the ceiling or the floor. We've already been over this, and the aspect ratio would not be preserved depending on what's closer to the freaking camera. You can duplicate it with a bottle. A bottle has a short...
How in the hell is the aspect ratio
big base.
blown
If
out?
you hold the bottle up to your eye, the small lip of the bottle will tower over the bigger base, just like the clock tower in the freaking mountain.
But I will tell you exactly at what distance it will get bigger.
Can I just say that you do realize that entire argument that you've just brought out, clearly you haven't seen the presentation, has been absolutely debunked with the information that was put out in the video, right? So I'm not going to say much more, because if you haven't got the cajoolies to go over there and actually watch it, then, you know, you're just going to live in denial this entire time. What I'm saying is that that argument has been debunked by myself, right? We're not talking just about angular size. We're not talking about trigonometry. We're not talking about things getting smaller at distance. We're not talking about perspective. We are talking about the whole shebang, and it all gets broken down inside of that video. The presentation, myself, Ruhif, Conspiracy Cats, we go through everything that you've just waffled on about and probably thought about, and I spent too much trying to debunk. I spent too much trying to debunk, could not, and yet you are spouting stuff that we already addressed.
I saw Ruhif try to address it badly with Globespective, what he thought would happen over a flat plane, not taking into account the diffraction limit and how a horizon will form in the foreground, behind which everything will be clipped and cut off in the background, since the horizon is a coin that has thickness and magnifies the amount of obstruction of the objects beyond it, just like a coin in front of a car, just like the coin at the horizon where everything converges and cuts off the object beyond.
It's all lies.
So what about then? What about?
We can reject the presentation out of hand because it didn't include some figment of Lemon's imagination.
Because your model is garbage. If it doesn't include that, it's garbage.
This
it's
wasn't
a model what you think would happen.
Hold on, Lemon. Garbage. This was not my presentation. Was nothing to do about with the globe at all. Nothing to do with the globe, you know. And what you're arguing about here is perspective and what you should see and what the effects may be of that. But you haven't taken into account the research that I did as regards to the mountain and what you can actually see on it, and you can actually scale the mountain due to that. So I didn't even need to say, even though I think I did at the end, but I didn't really need to even imply. I just had to ask, where is the bottom of that mountain in regards to eye line on a flat plane? That was it. Right?
The horizon,
you can no. There's no compression. There's no compression. There's nothing lost in the image. Right? Everything is exactly where it should be. There's no compression. There's no sinking. There's no looming. Right? I went through it all, my friend, and you will see it if you go to the video. And then, when you've watched the video, seen the presentation, seen everything that's been presented, come back to me and have a debate with me over this.
Well, I've already seen the conspiracy crap video. I just can't believe we're even having this discussion.
So you haven't watched it then, right? That's fine. I expected that. But, you know, it's disappointing considering that you've probably seen my work for 5 years and you can't be asked watching a 30-minute fucking video that was put out a week ago where everybody's talking about it and you've still got an opinion on it.
Well, I'll try to do my best, but I can't believe this is even a thing. I mean, we know about the diffraction limit. We know that a horizon will form in the foreground. The question is whether that horizon, like a coin, will still V out and obstruct great objects beyond it and cut them off with perspective.
It has nothing to do with the horizon, Lemon. Why don't any of you get this? This is not a usual stuff obstructed on the horizon observation. It's not that. Stop.
Well, the thing is, you're implying that only Earth curve can cut off a mountain. That's absurd.
No,
a horizon forms in the foreground and cuts off the stuff in the background like a coin at the right ratio. That's it.
Well, okay, but that's absurd, Lemon, because it's completely made up. It's
logical.
It's a figment of your imagination and nothing more.
You know why it's logical?
There is no reason for anyone to consider any figments of your imagination.
You know why it's logical? Because a coin can obstruct the car beyond.
However,
the coin will converge, merge, and disappear just like the horizon. And that horizon, like the coin, will still obstruct great objects beyond if it's at the right ratio. That is logical, Jim. Well, logical.
Yes, we know that a small object can obstruct a larger object if the distances are correct.
Exactly.
However, as again, This is why you need to go and watch the presentation, because they took account of perspective. This observation absolutely relies upon them taking account of perspective. And you're just
the
pretending,
globe idea of perspective
you're just
fanatic.
pretending that they didn't, and that somehow you can bend math. Because the point is, Lemon, that the mountain is 4.6 times taller than the tower, and it's 4.1 times further away. It can only look bigger through perspective. So pretending that this somehow perspective is going to get you out of this is incorrect.
But all you have is theoretical math that's not even backed by reality, in that I can look at this bottle right here, small lip versus a bigger base. And if I put it right up on my eye, that small lip will look bigger than the big base. There's your tower and the mountain right there. So reality doesn't even back up your theoretical mathematical construct that is useless when it doesn't.
You don't need to go on 10 days with this lie.
Lemon, stop!
Or any of the relevant phenomena.
Lemon, that has been accounted for. How
I
have
doubt.
to say it? Yes, it has. Don't say I doubt it. Go and watch the fucking thing and see that it has. You're just making shit up, deluding yourself, pretending that somehow something that is 4.6 times the size of something else, but only 4.1 times further away, that somehow it can be smaller. It can't, Lemon. It's a mathematical certainty that it will be taller if the Earth is flat. Mathematical certainty. Taking account of perspective. 4.6 times bigger, only 4.1 times further away. It starts off bigger, and the distance makes it remain bigger. It's a mathematical certainty, Lemon, and it has been taken account of. This will not get you out of it.
But perspective also makes an object dip precipitously.
No,
Life is Short went over a similar phenomenon
Okay, so
in the
what is
video
the
as well. So you guys really got to watch Life is Short's video then.
Okay, so what is the maths that we should apply? You're saying they didn't take account of this stuff. What equation do we use to account for that? Which is also a figment of your imagination, as we both know. But go ahead and tell us the equation.
Math the crap out of it. He talks about basically maintaining the ratio above the eye level and below the eye level, set up the ratio, and then maintain that ratio throughout. He goes over the math. That's above my pay grade right now. Well, let me see if I can find this video that you're talking about. I saw the conspiracy crap one with conspiracy craps or whatever the heck his name is.
Do you even listen? Do you even listen?
That's the video, yeah. Conspiracy Cat, Shrew-Hip, and Ranty.
Do you even listen? Do you even listen to what people are telling us?
No,
I
listen to what people say, and I listen to what they don't say.
Please don't speak. Please don't speak, Lemon. Please don't speak. Just think about it for about 2 or 3 seconds and think. In the past 30 minutes, anything that people have said to you, have you actually taken it in, or have you just gone straight back into just regurgitating stuff?
No.
Take a breath. Think about it.
Ranty, he's not a liar, clearly.
No, I'm genuine here. I feel that Lemon is ignoring every single thing that you're saying to him.
Look, Ranty,
Lemon is not genuine.
But I've been there, done that. It's flat. I'm never going back.
He's ideologically possessed.
That sounds like a man with an open mind, let me tell you.
He's unbiased.
The only person in here who hasn't gone back is more open-minded than you, because you're still globe, and I was a globe, and now I'm flat.
He only knows one way to attack this.
Science.
Obstruction at the horizon, squishing, nothing that affects the angle to the top of the tower, angle to the top of the mountain, neither of which are obstructed. He's got nothing. He's shitting himself. He doesn't know what to do.
And that's what Oakley's lot did. And a lot of them kept Chocolate Saying was another one. Oh, so the physical horizon's reappeared then, has it? They all just think it's stuff blocked on the horizon observation. And it's not. And it's just so frustrating. And so frustrating with the, like I say, the mathematical certainty of perspective. And they just keep saying, oh, well, it's perspective. No, it's not.
You can angle the camera upwards, not even see horizon or anything like that in the image.
Right.
Take that, all that out of it. You still have the same problem.
You don't even have to go that far. I mean, what you're seeing of that mountain, you might as well just say, there's the rooftop of the mountain. You know where it goes down to that dip to the side of the tower? You can just say, there's the roof of a house, right? Okay, but it's a 2-story building. Okay, so we can get down to maybe halfway down the windows of the first floor. Well, what about the rest of it? You know, where's the rest of that building gone then? You just replace the mountain with a building, because I think what people are doing is they're looking at that image and they're thinking that there's a mountain, because all mountains, you know, if you cut off the top of it, it still looks like a mountain. you know, it still looks like a fucking mountain. They can't process that there's still more of the mountain and a lot more of it underneath where your eye line will be on Blackpool Tower. And, you know, if you replace that with an object that they're familiar with and say, hey, you know, there's a house behind Blackpool Tower, right? You can see the rooftop, right? Check. You can see half of the first floor window, check. Right, okay, eye line is here, check. Right, where's the rest of the fucking house then?
Chemo, I'm sorry, not chemo. Ranty, we can explain this in many ways, even over a flat plane. I'm holding up my phone right now against something that it's a level with in the distance. When I angle that phone toward that object, all of a sudden it takes on depth and thickness, and part of it appears to go below the object in the distance that it was level with before. How do you know that mountain chain is angled at an angle off to the side, kind of cocked, and at an oblique angle, appearing to go below simply by turning it to the side? We have so many ways that we could explore this over a flat plane, it's not even funny. Why are we even talking about this?
Well, hold on there, Lemon. Here's the issue, though.
I'd be happy with those explanations, Lemon. I think that is a step forward. If you're not saying that this is just perspective and one object just being further away, we've made some progress. Now, you've moved on to made-up bullshit that's completely invented. But, you know, we're happy with that we're used to that. Thank you.
It's common sense. But the thing is, I think these math relationships aren't quite what we thought, because you're basically getting an angular size ratio and an aspect ratio on the part of the mountain that hasn't converged into the level of the eyes. So we need a new theory of optics here that takes into account that diffraction limit, refraction, whatever the hell, is making this stuff converge at the level of the eyes when you look down the hallway.
Well, I think when you say we need a new theory of optics, I think you need a new theory of optics, and you need it really quick. And I think at the moment you're proposing a theory of optics that you've invented and you don't really have any reason to believe is true.
Well, if you think
Lehman,
about what was that?
I was going to say, Ranty's put something in the chat. He wanted to know if you could read it out.
I did cut some other guy off. Sorry, other guy. I don't know who you were, because I wasn't looking, but I do apologize. Yeah.
He wants to know if you can read it out, Lemon. Can you see it?
Get in after Queen, dude.
At 8:06. Lemon, can you read this out? You get an object that is 7 inches tall, then move it 400 meters away, then divide it by 4.77 and add 27, then minus 25 and multiply it by 345. After that, you sell it for 300 and buy it back for 400, which you then divide by 600 and add 2. Then after all that, you still need to go back to the beginning to find out the temperature and diffraction limits. You then need to add the temperature and minus the distance to the moon, then add the weight of the ocean in tons at the equator, of course, then minus the weight of the ice caps at the South Pole. Finally, you will have an answer for something.
Well put.
Well done.
Haha. But basically,
I think it's obvious, right? I think it's obvious. Lemon is quite happy with the flat Earth, and you know what, Lemon? That's fine. You can believe the flat Earth, but everyone talking about this observation who hasn't even bothered to watch half an hour that Ranty, Katz, and Rue have put into it, it's actually quite insulting, isn't it? Considering Ranty put in 5 years of his life to this cult.
Well, thank you, Ranty, for your service. But the thing is, just because you're an expert doesn't mean that you know how to think about the issue. I mean, it's just you need a fresh new perspective from people that are outsiders, people that have a new take on the issue. And I don't care how many years you've been surveying or whatever, if you're indoctrinated in the globe cult and only know how to think about things from a globe perspective, then it's time for a new perspective.
And what makes your viewpoint valid just because it's new, as you say?
Because it's backed by reality from the bottle that I talked about before.
That's an absolute lie. Next.
And Ranty has held that position, hasn't he? Ranty has held that point of view, hasn't he, for a long time. You can't. It's not as if he hasn't entertained the idea. I think he's done a lot more than that.
I mean, I think I've even said before, Lemon, me and Ranty are friends and real life, right? And Ranty was definitely a genuine flat earther. Like, we literally avoided the subject because it's just not worth having a falling out over. But he's looked into this stuff. He was 100% convinced. So it's not likely that he's turned the way he has.
Well, I've been at the globe before. I don't feel movement. There's no optical experiment that even proves movement. So at the very least, we're geocentric. Ares' failure proves that the Earth probably is not moving because they didn't need to tilt the water-filled telescope anymore to get the light coming from the stars into the telescope. If the Earth was moving, they'd have to tilt it more. So at the very least, we're geocentric, if not flat.
You're waiting for something. You're waiting to say something. You're not listening.
You're wrong.
So, Ranty, I really suggest you look at this video here that goes over how perspective would work over a flat plane before you go with another globe perspective.
Can I just hold on? Can I just interrupt you there? This angular resolution of our world, I was the first guy that actually spoke to Life is Short, presented him, and if you actually check it out on Brandon's now because it's his channel, and re-uploaded this entire video on to the channel. So way back before anybody even knew who he was, I think he had 6 views on his channel. Six on that particular video. I already appreciated the effort that he went into on that. And do you know why he did that video? Because because he contacted me via email and wanted to talk about optics and said that he specialized in this, that, and the other, and he wanted to put a presentation out, a video out, and I asked him to go away and make a presentation, make a video, and he did it in like a 2-hour documentary, and he uploaded 2 individual videos, one after the other, and then I re-uploaded them and shared it with the whole community. So I am absolutely fully aware of the video that you've just presented.
Told you he's done his work, Lemon. He's done his work. He's put in massive effort.
Well, there's still the problem of no curve to the horizon that's indistinguishable from the curvature of the lens. It's a flat line that we are interpreting as a curvature going down and away from the observer, whatever ratios you want to have with the clock tower being in front of the mountain or whatever. So it's just way too undefinitive for us to really render a verdict on this. We still need something that travels straight and true over the land like a laser to show us whether or not it's hitting a hump of Earth curvature or the target, and those appear to point to something flatter with the infrared up to 1,000 miles. This just isn't
2021. We're not still debating whether a circle curves or not. That's not up for debate. How curved it looks depends upon the size of the circle and your angle of view to it. That's it. Stop with this.
Okay, so get higher with the drone and see if that aspect ratio is maintained, or whether the tower goes below the mountains if you get higher. See if that's maintained with a level drone going above the land. See if it is, I mean, the thing is, we also have to harmonize with what our prevailing theory is. You harmonize seeing way too far over the ball with reflection. Nonsense. We can harmonize this with the flat plane and try to see if it's still at the same aspect ratio with the tower being higher than the thing in the back by going up high with the drone. Let's test it out.
Lemon, one thing. The aspect ratio has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Stop misusing the term. That would be the image's height and width. How are you trying to use it?
To see if the tower in the front is still towering above the mountain if you get a level drone to ascend above the ground, or if it changes, probably due to refraction over a flat plane in optics.
Are you trying to say that you're going to change the aspect ratio by taking the camera up and looking further over a globe and somehow somehow ending that around into a flat Earth? How in the fuck are you doing that?
So you're going to basically interpret it as seeing over a globe. So already your premise is baked in. That's fine. My flat premise is baked in. But we still need a straight and true standard like a laser or something that is level and true to determine the curvature of the Earth against. You don't have that. So you have a bunch of philosophical assumption and questionable photos from NASA.
You've
What
ended
about
up
the
where
photos not from NASA though? Do we just ignore those ones?
Yeah, the laser's going to bend just like the light lemon.
So you're just admitting.
Also, we have geodesy, which measures straight lines. Thank you very much.
So you have no straight standard against which to measure the curvature of the Earth. At that point, the curvature of the Earth is a philosophical declaration.
Lemon, we've been over, you can go to Slack, you can go to LIGO. They both have straight lines.
Okay, so if they have straight lines, why can't we use a straight line to measure the curvature of the Earth then?
It takes very precise manufacturing to do that, Lemon. It took a long time
they had to install LIGO.
Hey nerds, I know you're all excited because Lemon's here and you all want to sound smart, but one at a time, please.
There is no curvature. The Earth is flat and motionless. The only thing that you're interpreting as curvature is the diffraction limit from the horizon in the foreground, and like a penny, it's obstructing what's beyond and cutting it off.
He'd be like Lemon. He doesn't care about.
Why can't you give us any evidence of this?
Gyro.
Where's the evidence of this, Lemon? If it's true, you should be able to repeat some observation that demonstrates this.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so let's look at bacteria. Bacteria are way beyond the diffraction limit of the eye, as the scene has crushed objects, top, bottom, left, and right from all sides, and all you can see are the bigger zones that surround the invisible bacteria because they're way beyond the diffraction limit. It's the same thing when you're 6 feet off the freaking ground where the horizon forms. Up to the horizon, you get 6 feet of crushing, top, bottom, left, and right coming in to crush and the object and make it vanish into the horizon line. But then it stops there from the bottom. The 6 feet of compression from the bottom is over. That's it. While compression continues from the top, the left, and the right. 10 feet, top, left, right. 20 feet, top, left, right. While the 6 foot crushing from the bottom is stopped. This is going to be interpreted as a curve downward as the crushing continues from all sides but stops from the bottom up. That's what's happening with perspective, obviously, if you look at bacteria, if you look at the hallway, if you look at logic.
Lemon, you're crushing them. You're absolutely annihilating.
There was a lot
the
to
entire
take
room.
in, Chemo.
The entire room
I
is
asked
being
for evidence
annihilated.
of the flatness, but you
Globes can't respond, Lemon, to
I'm
this because they
tired.
don't have any practical measurements.
It's
And without
okay.
those practical measurements, we can all theorize what we're looking at. And that's what they're doing. They're presupposing a ball, presupposing a model, and saying, well, this is how it would work on a flat Earth without even checking out the real flat Earth, and then or saying how it works on a ball. This is just absolute nonsense.
We're back to the tactic that I was talking about earlier, though, aren't we? But
yes,
what you're
100%.
doing is creating some arbitrary rule that no reasonable person would ever create, and saying, until this rule has been met, I just get to reject any evidence that challenges what I believe, regardless of what that evidence is.
No, we get to reject.
I need some random person who I don't know to jump through some hoops for me, and if they do, then I'm going to start considering evidence.
No,
but
the problem is,
until they do, I'm going to ignore anything.
Yeah,
that
well, let me
challenges
explain
my
why
belief.
that happens.
And that should the fact that you're doing that that is not a route to truth.
Well, let me explain why that happens.
Because to delusion.
As we've established, you have many methods of finding out whether something is true or not. So because of that, because of your method, why you're saying, well, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do this. Well, yes, you do. This is the method that you would find out the truth. Because with your method, we're still guessing.
Not.
With your method, we're
not.
still guessing. We're still considering, is it this? Is
No.
it that? But if you follow
You're
the
wrong.
method that we prescribe to you, you'll find out whether it's true, and there won't be any arguments about it.
No, because your method is to ignore the evidence until some silly assault course has been achieved.
That's
you
the
know,
method,
in Brandon's case, for instance, somebody he doesn't know, he's never met, that some random person has got to build some structure somewhere illustrates to him the curvature of
Many
the Earth.
different methods,
And
as you said.
And until this arbitrary and bizarre condition has been met, he just gets to reject.
As you said, though, Jeb, many different methods.
Hang on, nearly there. He gets to reject all optical evidence, everything that can be seen and recorded, all of that he gets to reject out of hand until the random person that he doesn't know yet has built this structure for him. I mean,
the thing is, all you have, Jem, is philosophy, and your philosophy.
That is not a route. That is not a route to truth. That is not a way to find out about reality.
That's your method. There are many different methods, as you said.
Nearly there. Chemo, you're saying we need to follow this method. It's the method of ignoring evidence. I'd say
that would be my method.
I say consider all the evidence. Consider
you've got to let me respond now.
Don't reject any of it because a silly test hasn't been met.
No, because you know what I'm going to say is very powerful, like I've just said. Even if it's flat earthers, your rule...
If you think that bizarreness was very powerful...
your rule was that there are many different methods. So even flat earthers can have different methods. So if Brandon says he wants it done this way, Lemon wants it done this way, I want it done this way, all of us want it done this way, you should adhere to each method and say, okay, that's your method. Let's follow that method. You're saying
not on us to perform your methods.
You're saying that you should follow your method.
If you can provide reasoning for adopting that method.
No, there's no reasoning. No, it's your method. As many methods.
I can provide reasoning for any method I use to get to knowledge.
No,
I can always provide reasoning for it.
How can that be true?
My basic reasoning is examine the evidence and believe things to be true if they're supported by evidence.
There are different
methods. What you're saying is ignore evidence until some stupid test we've dreamed up.
No, there's another way. You said
I don't think that's a way to get to truth.
Well, it's not down to you. You said there are many different ways. Okay, so if someone deploys another way, you can't criticize that other way because it's not your method.
That doesn't mean that saying there are many different ways does not mean that anyone gets to dream up any bizarre, weird thing.
So what does it mean there, many different ways?
And say this is a route to knowledge.
What does it mean there, many different ways?
Well, I say that I don't limit knowledge to 4-step scientific experiment.
So what does it mean? Many different ways.
I say there are other things that can get us to knowledge other than that.
Like what?
Well,
how many ways?
Knowledge to a Masonic elite of astronauts and questionable photos. I limit it to my experience, the Word of God, which has been utterly rejected by a godless age. It is what it is. Even when I was a Glober, I believed the scientism, not the Word of God, where God says to Job, it's pressed out like clay under the signet ring. I'm going to believe him since he manufactured the thing, not a bunch of scientists making guesses out of uniformitarianism and assuming that conditions now that are the way that they think they were in the past and stuff like that. They're just guessing. It's just stupid to think that there's a flat horizon and I'm superimposing globe curvature onto it that is no different from the curvature of the lens or a poor understanding of perspective. It doesn't make any sense, Jem.
In this observation, obviously the curvature of the lens doesn't make any difference. So that doesn't help you either.
That's only one method. And you can't go back on your word now when you said there are many different methods as there are scientists.
At no point did I say anyone can dream up any arbitrary, bizarre method for reaching knowledge,
but how are you the arbiter of methods?
If they do their bizarre requirements,
how can you decide what is a method?
If they do their bizarre requirements,
I'm asking you, how can you decide what is a good method and what is not method?
They need to be able to offer reasoning for why they've adopted this method.
What if someone thinks what if someone thinks your reasoning is not a good method?
No, that's fine. That's up to them.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. So you can't say that someone else's method, because there's many different methods, that the method is wrong. So if Brandon
I'm not rejecting any methods. You are.
No, you are. You're saying that because Brandon wants it in this way, you're saying, well, why should we do it in that method?
Yeah, but because that's a way of rejecting evidence. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying I don't have a method that rules out loads of evidence.
No,
that
is
doesn't
your
happen.
method.
My method allows me to assess all the evidence,
So you say.
including complete bullshit.
No, but that's what you
Including
say
stuff,
in your method.
including stuff that is even evidently complete bullshit. I still get to consider that as well. There is no rules that just rule something out of hand. But
look,
you have got those rules.
Let's slow down a little bit.
If you've got those
Slow down a
rules,
little bit. Hold on, slow down a little bit.
You ought to be able to justify them.
Let's slow it down. So look, the idea is to find a truth. Doesn't matter what it is, a truth.
Right.
Yeah. So
are you likely to? So it's a simple equation.
Let me finish my point.
Oh, go on then.
If that's true, that we're trying to find a truth, then if we're being true about that, then everyone's method would be different. Because if you found something to be true, how could I see it through your eyes?
They're actually not describing a method. They're putting up arbitrary boundaries to prevent what is being discovered from being accepted. That's very different than determining a method.
Right, Brandon has no intention of going and building this structure himself. He thinks he's entitled to have someone else deliver it to him in some way. And then after that, then he will consider visual or optical evidence. But I mean, that's ridiculous. And you do the same thing. You say, unless there's a 4-step scientific experiment supporting this proposition, I will just ignore all of the evidence surrounding it. And what you're saying is, what we're talking about, and you were clear about this, is we're trying to get to truth. It's a route to truth. And I say, hang on, nearly there. I say the route to truth is from considering as wide a body of evidence as is possible. You say the route to truth is through finding some daft arbitrary rule to ignore as much of the evidence as possible. And I don't see how you can reason that is a course to truth.
Jem,
there's all of your evidence.
Hold up 1 second, Kimo. Jem, you said a minute ago that your method is to consider all of the possible evidence, right?
Right.
And then even the bullshit.
Yes.
Right? So that means you have like criterion that deem evidence as bullshit.
That's true.
We have the same. We just deem more evidence.
Well, that's not true.
What you call non-bullshit evidence, we call it bullshit evidence still. Our bullshit, we're just more stringent with the bullshit. That's it.
Actually, no, you're not. You're less stringent entirely.
No, but there's a difference, because I get to consider the evidence, and once I've considered it, I then decide if it's bullshit.
We do too.
What you're saying is, vast swathes of evidence are bullshit until somebody else has performed some task for me, and then I will start to consider the other evidence. But until the random unknown person who doesn't know me and who owes me nothing has jumped through these hoops for me, until that happens, I will ignore evidence.
Yeah,
and
we
you cannot
consider it, but if
pretend
it's not definitive,
you cannot
it's
pretend
automatically
that
bullshit.
you cannot pretend that those two things are equivalent.
No, we consider it, but if it's not definitive, it's automatically bullshit. That's why we
Well,
come
we're
up
not-
with
that's
definitive
not what-
methods of proving the stuff.
Well, you're talking
We
about
have a
something
filter
else
for
then.
definitive evidence.
You're talking about something else. I'm talking about these guys here who are putting rules in place to not consider evidence.
That's to
and
make
saying
it more
and
definitive.
saying that evidence can be thought of as bullshit until some other unconnected assault course has been performed. And I think that's ridiculous. And,
No, that's just to make it more
and
definitive, to filter out the bullshit.
no reasonable person would apply that to any other knowledge proposition, and you do not apply that to any other knowledge proposition ever, anywhere. Nobody does.
Anyways, go ahead, Kimo.
Oh, go on, we respond to it.
It's
You're not letting them
obviously
respond.
unreasonable. Obviously.
Well, the thing is, the scientific consensus that we appeal to gets it wrong too, so I'm going to keep my head on straight. I don't feel movement. I don't see curvature. And none of the optical experiments prove that the Earth moves one jot or one tittle. So it looks like they've been full of shit, and we've been lied to. So let's get to the bottom of this and see if heliocentrism has any real validity, or if we just got it wrong.
If all else fails, chant the catchphrase.
What your method is just relying on people, trusting what you call reputable. So if that's as far as you're going to go, well, that's not a method I would use, just to rely on a company that says this is what it is and then just stop there. That's your method. You're saying, well, I don't need to do any more because they've done it for me.
So that's a misrepresentation of my method.
No. So I say, because my point was...
Yes. That's a complete misrepresentation. What you're saying is you just believe what NASA tell you. That's your method.
Right.
No, that is not my method. My method is to consider all of the evidence and believe propositions to be true if they are supported by a body of evidence.
But not
that is not just believing what one company says. That is a complete misrepresentation of my method.
But that's the only
But you
way...
need to justify your method. You need to justify why it's acceptable to put in some arbitrary task that has to be performed before you even consider the evidence.
That's the point. A task has to be done. There is no task. You're saying a company has told us we haven't checked it out, so we don't have to do any tasks. Where's the task?
Well, like I say, your Brandon's route to knowledge, for instance, is I will ignore evidence that, or I will ignore optical evidence that challenges my belief until some arbitrary, some random person who I've never met and who owes me nothing goes and builds some structure that demonstrates the Earth is curved. And then when this person has performed that task, then I will start considering optical evidence that challenges my belief.
Yeah,
and I think that's absurd. I don't think you could justify such a position.
Well, that's the point. Your method, you've missed out the first step. Gone straight to third or fourth step. Well, first of all, is the Earth curving? Then you can say...
There you go again, automatically putting up your arbitrary barrier and forcing him into it.
Yeah, yours similarly is, I'm going to reject all evidence that doesn't comport with quantum erasers four-step scientific method. That's equally absurd. In fact, probably more absurd.
Yeah, because you're showing me an observed phenomena in nature. Now, you're saying the reason is the ball, but we haven't been shown...
No. You're missing it.
And again,
Jim said he considers all evident, which means he starts with no definitive, pre-assumed shape. That's starting with all the evidence. God. It's real basic, Chemo. You're really in a spiral.
You can't say this observation doesn't work on a flat Earth when you don't know how a flat Earth works.
Oh, you can't say the Earth is flat if you don't know how a flat Earth works.
Yes, we can.
Because...
How?
Because it's observably flat and motionless.
Well, according to Chemo, it's not. Because when it's observed to be curved, that's just it being flat.
Then observe curvature.
With some unknown effect going on that makes the flat Earth appear curved.
Where do we observe curvature?
Shown it to be curved.
Yes, we have.
All right, it's sloping. Doesn't matter. It's definitely not flat.
Don't observe the slope. We observe
we observe it. It's observably not flat.
Observe a
now
mountain
what you're gonna do.
that appears to be lower. Appears to be.
Oh, it is lower.
No, that's the question.
No.
It's an observed phenomena in nature.
The observation is that the Earth is not flat.
No, it appears to be lower than the tower. That's the appearance. There's no definitive evidence that it is lower.
Yes,
it just looks like that.
Yes, there is.
What's the definitive evidence?
We can see it's lower.
It looks lower.
So what?
And
what
this
is
is made,
why?
and this observation is made more definitive by the fact that it's been repeated multiple times now.
So,
and
in
every case, it's lower.
Doesn't matter. It looks lower. Yes, we can agree that that's how it looks.
Why does it look lower?
Yes.
That's all we know so far, is that it looks lower.
Why does it look lower?
Well, who's going to answer the
that
why?
That isn't all we know.
Who dares to answer the why?
We know how much it looks lower. By how much?
Well, how much does it look lower?
And we know that comports with the size and shape of the Earth.
Yeah, that's what you assume the size of.
No, that's not assumed. None of that's assumed.
Why is it not assumed? Who's measured?
We have a known size and shape of the Earth.
When you
And
say
we,
known,
and we have known measurements of these objects and distances.
when you say
And,
known,
all of that is coherent.
what does known mean in this case?
Proven, shown, demonstrated, measured. What do you want?
The commonly held measurements of the Earth. The one, just Google it, you'll find out what they are.
But we don't know who's measured that, though.
Doesn't matter.
That's the
I
point.
measured
So that method, I wouldn't stick to
No,
that method.
it's
I want to know
it
who's
doesn't
measured
look.
it.
The point is that that data is already out there. It's already established and has been there a long time. Now you're welcome to challenge it. That's fine. I'm not denying you. I'm not denying you that right. However, at this stage, this observation matches that established data.
Well,
I think that's significant.
Okay, so that measurement you've made, like you said, has been challenged for the black swan. So if we don't have curvature at the right
the black
rate-
swan doesn't challenge it in any way.
The black swan shows you have no geometry.
No, it doesn't.
The black swan shows you don't understand.
Doesn't show that.
refraction.
What does
Chemo.
have
Black
no
swan
geometry
built on a
mean?
false
What
premise.
does that mean? Because I hear Brian's logic doing this. There is no geometric horizon, so there is no globe. I mean, what the fuck does that mean?
So it means
they've got no geometric horizon. What does that mean? I don't understand. What does they've got no mean?
Yeah, it means that when they try to calculate the observer height and what should or shouldn't be hidden is based on nothing. Because we can't calculate the height of the observer and how much you should or shouldn't see. So when you're trying to calculate the mountain, you don't have geometry in the first place to calculate this.
Why don't we? I don't get that. Why don't we have geometry? We have a known size and shape of the Earth,
Well,
right?
who measured it?
And that is the geometry.
Who measured it, though?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't look. It isn't. How did we get to this knowledge? You're denying the fact that that knowledge exists. I'm pointing out that that's incorrect. That knowledge does exist.
I haven't denied it. I said who measured it.
You did. You said we don't have geometry.
Yes, because you're not telling me who measured it.
Why do I hold on? Geometry is the measurement. Okay? I can tell you the measurements. What you're saying is the measurements don't exist until you tell me who took the measurement.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Why do you need? I don't get this. I don't understand.
Why don't I just believe that someone's measured the Earth?
Well, you don't have to believe it. It's supported by mountains of evidence.
That's what I'm looking for.
You've
What
gotta
is
do
the
it
evidence?
yourself, I
Who
suppose.
measured it?
But what difference does it make?
Because that would be evidence.
Of what?
So the Earth being measured.
I measured it.
Look, there is an established measurement of the Earth.
Who established it?
This picture doesn't matter. It's
Yes, it does.
established. It doesn't.
By who? Who established it?
It's established in the reality that you live in, and this picture was
That
taken
doesn't mean it's
in.
true.
Listen, I know it doesn't. I'm not saying it does. It was
let's
established.
verify it.
It's established. Don't be silly.
Verified
We're
it 3
talking.
weeks ago.
What you're saying is so we cannot even begin to discuss this picture until we've rediscovered everything. We've got to go all the way back to the beginning and trace back. We've got to say who first measured the Earth, and then all of the people who have subsequently measured the Earth, and then we're going to have to go through each of them and make
No,
sure
you just
that
have to
they're
verify the measurements.
all decent people. And I mean, where does it end? It's just a
No, you just have
silly.
to verify
It's a
the
silly
measurements that you're comparing
distraction.
against. Otherwise, it's just reification.
Look, it isn't reification. We have established measurements for the Earth.
Who?
Listen. All of us, humanity as a whole.
That's not
this,
true.
Yes, we do, and don't pretend we don't. You're an
Well, I'm
idiot.
asking for who. There's not been one
All right,
name
all
given
right.
that you believe in.
Okay. Let's see which of us is correct.
It's not
What
established with me.
is
established. I
the
verified
size of the Earth?
Appeal to consensus.
Now, it's an appeal to an established fact, which is what
appeal,
might
no, it's appeal
shut
to
up.
established claim.
It's a bloody fact, mate, and that's
No,
it's not a
you
claim.
haven't shown any verification
Once
whatsoever.
None of this is the point. All I'm saying is what is in this photo matches what we already know to be true and what is established to be true. If you want to
true is different than
hang on a minute. If you want to establish what is known and established to be true, that's another conversation at another time. I say that because this matches what we already know, that's useful.
You don't know
if you're going to say all conversations about these sort of horizon observations must then start with first discussing how the Earth was measured, then we can never have one of these horizon discussions, can we? Because we're always going to have to spend all our time talking about Eratosthenes and everybody else that's measured the Earth in the last 2,500 years, and we have to make sure that all of those have done it correctly before we can talk about horizon stuff. It's an obvious red herring, an obvious ridiculous distraction, and it should bother you that this picture matches what's established and what you claim a picture would not match because it's not true.
Jem, is there a difference between something being established in like the minds of men versus being actually true? Yes or no?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so is this established in the minds of men?
Yes.
Or is it actually true?
It's both.
Okay, where is the proof that it's actually true? Where's the verification?
All of the evidence that supports the size and shape of the Earth. Are you
measurement?
Are you really seriously going to sit in a room? Are you really seriously going to sit in a room of other adults when you've been in this conversation?
Making some emotional arguments.
All right, we'll do it the hard. We'll do it the hard way. You are muted, okay? Are you really going to sit in a room full of other adults and do this ridiculous, absurd sea lining act? What measurement? When has there been a measurement? You fucking retard. I will not bother with this idiotic nonsense. There have been thousands of measurements. You know all about them. You've heard about them many, many thousands of times. They are completely irrelevant to this conversation. This conversation is not about that. If you want to have a conversation about that, it's for another time. At the moment, the conversation is about the contents of this photograph and your idiotic methods of gaining knowledge about reality.
Typical Jem with the mute and monologue method. Fantastic.
Yeah, typical percent, constantly interrupting so that he absolutely has to be muted because it's the only way you can get more than 3 words out without him blabbering all over you in a desperate attempt to censor you from actually speaking some facts.
That's a blatant lie. You're a fucking liar.
It's not a lie at all.
I actually only realized I was muted 10 seconds ago when I looked at my screen. Before that, I was letting you talk. I was letting you spiel for 2 minutes.
You're
I waited
lying
until you were
again.
done, and just it turned out that
I announced the mute. I told you I was
No, you
muting
haven't been
you.
announcing it. Don't lie.
Exactly.
I absolutely did announce the mute, and that
You
proves,
did, I heard.
that
How many
proves
times
that
did you mute me?
that proves that you were
How many
talking
times did
over
you
me.
mute,
That
Jeff?
proves that you were talking over me when I
How many
muted
times
you.
did you mute?
Twice.
And how many times did you announce it?
Once.
And that's a lie, actually. That's a fucking lie. Because you
No, it's not.
at least 3 times I saw.
Why would I have muted you 3 times? I haven't had that many. There wasn't that many interactions. I muted
Well,
you
you
once.
muted me 3 times. I saw my
Look,
thing go
because
from
then did you
white to red 3 times, and that was just when I was looking. So you're
You
a liar.
constantly interrupt in the middle of what I'm saying. I find it very, very frustrating, and you know you're doing it, and you do it deliberately.
No, I don't do it deliberately. You got to stop
you do.
participating in the debate if you're going to mod at the same time. Okay? You can't mod at the same time. Get someone else. There's multiple mods in here. Stop abusing your mods like a fool.
I'm not abusing
okay?
my
You're
mods.
using this as hold up. I'm talking now. Don't interrupt.
Don't
so you're
tell
using
Jim
this
what
as
to
a
do.
PR
Oh,
type of
no,
segment.
percentage.
You know it's like being recorded, so you just do it to try to flex. You have, you use your special privileges
It's
like
his
a fucking idiot.
server, you mom.
That's what it is. All right.
It's
Secondly,
a
you
server. He can
claimed
do whatever he
that
likes.
it was a fact. Where
Take it
is
up
the,
with Spurs,
the
mate.
verification?
Of course, it's a fact. It's an established fact, and I don't.
Established fact is not a
I
thing,
don't mute.
okay?
I don't mute anyone just so I can make an argument.
It's not
If people
established
are-
fact. It's an
if people
established
are-
claim. It's
I'm-
an established claim. That's it.
I've muted you. I don't mute any. I don't mute anyone.
yeah.
I don't mute anyone just so I can make an argument. I mute people because they talk over me constantly, and you are one of the worst offenders. Percent. You do this all the time to everyone. You know you're doing it, and it's a deliberate attempt to derail what's being said. So, and of course, the shape of the Earth is a very, very well-established fact. It's probably one of the most well-established facts that there is. Thank you very much.
Liar.
Oh.
Two things you lied about.
Liar.
Well,
it's established.
Make your point.
It's established through
Look at me.
thousands
I'm
of.
talking, and you're the one interrupting. You're such a hypocrite.
Well, because you just called me a
When you
liar.
make your point,
You
I'm
just-
talking right now. Stop interrupting.
You just called me a liar. I think I have I think I have the right to respond to that. It's been measured many, many thousands of times by many thousands of people. Tens and tens of thousands of times by tens of thousands of people in lots of different countries, different cultures, different backgrounds, different political persuasions, different times in history. Of course, this is established. There is no. What could possibly be more established than this? Something that's been physically measured over and over and over again by multiple methods. Pretending it hasn't and that it's up for grabs and it's some mystery, it's fantasy, delusional fantasy.
Now are you going to admit to being a liar?
No.
Considering you just said a minute ago that you don't mute to make a point, and you just muted me to make a point.
Because you called me a liar.
Yeah, so you muted me to make a point to respond
When
to that
it's
liar thing.
obvious I'm not a
So
liar.
you're a liar then, because you directly contradicted what you just said a minute ago.
Oh God,
Will you admit
percentages.
that?
Is this what you do for fun?
Will you admit that, or are you going to
No.
be like a
I'll
pussy
tell you
and
what
not
I'll
admit it?
do. I'll just mute you again. Fuck off.
Lovely.
Well done, Jim.
Keep him that way. He deserves to stay.